Hi, welcome everyone. In first two videos of electrostatics, we have studied the basic concepts of electrostatics, in which we have gone through this link to see what were the basic things in electrostatics that we need to know if we want to study the 12th standard electrostatics. Today, by assuming that we all know the proof of Gauss law and Gauss theorem itself, we will go for studying the applications of Gauss theorem. Once again, I'll just state what that law is. Gauss theorem or Gauss law in electrostatics tells you that the total outward electric flux over an enclosed surface of any shape having large number of charges situated inside it is equal to 1 upon epsilon times the algebraic sum of all charges enclosed by it, which actually tells us that if you have a surface, closed surface of any shape, I do not mean a conducting surface here, an imaginary surface it could even be a real surface. So whenever you have a closed surface and in that you keep some 5 or 6 charges, q1, q2, q3, q4, q5, q6, some of them can be positive, some of them can be negative. If you have all such charges, then there will be an electric flux which will be given out by all those charges, and eventually the algebraic sum of all those electric flux is going to come out of the surface. So that total outward electric flux is actually equal to 1 upon epsilon times of sigma of qi. So it is 1 upon epsilon times sum of all the charges. Positive charges will have to be taken positive, negative charges will have to be taken negative. That is what it tells you. Now this electric flux phi is always equal to, over a complete surface, it will be always equal to you see surface integral of E dot ds. So this is what we all have already studied, that phi is equal to E dot ds. Now what is this Gauss theorem going to be useful for? That we are going to use this Gauss theorem in determining the electric intensity due to a given distribution of charge. The first application that we all are going to study is to determine what is the electric field intensity due to a uniformly charged conducting sphere or a spherical shell which is charged, or a hollow solid sphere which has been given charge, for which I take into consideration in this figure a spherical shell which is shown here, the center of which is equal to O and the radius is equal to capital R here. So this spherical shell I am taking into consideration, this one, and this spherical shell has been given some charge equal to plus small q on this. The charge will get uniformly distributed on this because it's a metallic one, and because of this charged conducting spherical shell, there will be an electric field in the radially outward direction, and I want to decide how much is the electric field intensity at any point P which is outside this charged conductor. The distance of this point P from the center is equal to smaller. So distance OP is equal to smaller. This radius of the actually charged conducting sphere is equal to capital R, and that is why we are considering that a positively charged conducting sphere having center as plus q, having charge as plus q, center as O, radius as capital R. It's kept in air. We will consider it to be initially kept in air for simplicity. Later on we can generalize the result for any other dielectric in which it can be placed. Let sigma be the surface charge density, means charge per unit area. So sigma is therefore equal to, we understand that sigma is then equal to charge upon entire area. So total charge is q, total area of this conducting spherical shell is 4 pi capital R squared. So therefore you find that sigma is equal to q upon 4 pi capital R squared. Now P is that any outside point which is a distance smaller from the center O. To find this electric field intensity at point P, we are going to imagine a concentric Gaussian sphere, the radius of which is equal to small r. Concentric means having the same center. So we will imagine this dotted lines are showing you that imaginary Gaussian sphere, the radius of which is equal to small r and center is same, O. So, but natural that this point P would lie on that particular imaginary Gaussian sphere, and I would then consider a very small surface area ds at this point P. At every such point on the sphere, the electric field intensity will be in the normally outward direction, and even your surface area vector ds at point P is also going to be in the normally outward direction only, so that vector E and vector ds, both of them are going to be in the same direction, so that angle between them is equal to 0. So then I imagine that ds is small surface area at point P, E is electric intensity at point P, and then electric flux, as we said, is given by d phi is equal to E dot ds, or it is equal to EDS cos theta. But as we said already, angle between vector E and vector ds is equal to 0, so cos 0 is 1, and that's why you have d phi is only equal to E dot ds. Well, this was electric flux only passing through this surface area which is at point P. So only through this surface area, whatever electric flux is passing through, that is given by E dot ds. So the total outward electric flux over the entire Gaussian sphere will then be given by integration of this term. So it's equal to phi is equal to integration of d phi is equal to integration of E dot ds we find. Then if I get it something like this, this E being the electric field intensity at distance r, it will be same at all these points, because all these points on the imaginary Gaussian spherical shell are equidistant, so they all will have the same value of electric field intensity. So it is taken out of the integration being a constant term, and integration of ds is going to be equal to the surface area of the Gaussian sphere, that is equal to 4 pi r squared. So you get phi is equal to E into 4 pi r squared becomes the total electric flux at passing through that imaginary Gaussian sphere. But Gauss theorem has already said that the total outward electric flux through this total given surface area is supposed to be equal to 1 upon epsilon 0 times the total charge enclosed, where the total charge enclosed was this charge plus q here, and therefore I find phi is then equal to q divided by epsilon 0, and then I can use, or rather compare, equations 2 and 3 to observe that these two things have to be same. This d phi here and this phi here, they have to be equal. So by considering that, I find E into 4 pi r squared is equal to q upon epsilon 0. I'll just shift this 1 upon 4 pi r squared term on the right hand side. It starts looking like q divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 r squared, and I can rewrite the term. It gives me that E is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 into q upon r squared. So this gives me what is the electric intensity, the magnitude rather of electric field intensity due to a charged conducting spherical shell. Now I observe that the charged conducting spherical shell behaves as if the entire charge is concentrated at its center for all its exterior points, whereas as we know that there is no electric flux inside or electric field inside the conductor, you observe that electric intensity is going to be equal to 0 inside the sphere. So that is what you have. Now that same equation number 4, I can rewrite and rearrange the terms as q divided by 4 pi capital R squared into capital R squared upon that kind of thing. I'm just introducing this capital R squared term here in this term, multiplying and dividing by this term capital R squared in that equation number 4 right hand side, and then I find that this entire value q divided by 4 pi r squared, that is actually equal to your term sigma. This is equal to sigma, so it gives me sigma upon epsilon 0 into capital R squared upon small r squared. This is the electric field intensity equation. E is equal to sigma upon epsilon 0 into capital R squared by small r squared in terms of surface charge density. If I have my point P just outside the conductor, that means this point P is just over here on the surface or just outside the surface. In that case, that capital R and small r, both values are exactly almost equal, and this term would then become 1. Capital R squared upon small r squared will be 1, and the equation would just look like, for point P which is just outside the conductor, you have E is equal to only sigma upon epsilon 0. If at all I am keeping my spherical shell, charged spherical shell in any other dielectric of constant K, this same equation would be written as E is equal to sigma upon epsilon 0 K, or I can even write it as sigma upon epsilon. In fact, in all these above equations 4, 5 and 6, I can replace epsilon 0 by epsilon 0 K if at all the surrounding is having dielectric constant K. Now the second application is to determine the electric field intensity due to a uniformly charged conducting cylinder, or I would say a line charge. That if I have a you see diagram like this, I have got a charged conducting cylindrical surface, open cylinder it can be, or it can even be a closed cylinder, and it is given a positive charge. The positive charge will be distributed along its length. I am considering it to be of infinite length, or for the timing you can even consider a large length capital L to be taken into consideration. It is having radius as capital R, and I want to find, because of this positively charged cylinder, what is the electric field intensity at point P, which is at distance smaller from the axis of this. Now once again the idea is same. I'm going to you see have a positively charged cylinder having radius equal to R and the linear charge density lambda placed in air. Now as I said already, the charge will be distributed along its length. There would be a linear charge density, or the charge per unit area would remain the same, and that I would call it as lambda. That P is any point outside the charged cylinder at distance smaller from the axis of cylinder, and to determine this electric field intensity at point P, we are going to imagine a coaxial Gaussian cylinder having radius R and certain length equal to L. In the previous case, we have considered a spherical concentric sphere as a Gaussian surface. Here, outside the cylinder, we will imagine another Gaussian cylinder itself, the radius of which is equal to small r, and the axis remains the same. That's why we are calling it as coaxial. Now automatically this point P is going to lie on this Gaussian cylinder, and every point on this Gaussian cylinder will have the same value of electric field intensity. Let us once again choose some small surface area at this point P. So if I choose this small surface area, this vector ds is also going to point in the same direction of electric field intensity, because your electric field intensity is going to be in the radially outward direction for a positively charged cylinder. So this electric flux passing through ds at point P is once again given by E ds cos theta, or because once again you have theta is equal to 0, you will have that as E into ds. Then the total outward electric flux out of the Gaussian cylinder will be equal to integration of this. Once again I am doing the similar thing, and that if I go for that, according to Gauss theorem, this total outward electric flux is E multiplied by integration ds is equal to E into 2 pi RL. I can equate once again those two equations, and I find that this E into 2 pi RL is equal to the total charge enclosed, which is equal to this, and I would observe that E is equal to lambda upon 2 pi epsilon 0 R. So if I equate these two things, I find it is something like this. So this above equation is going to give you the magnitude of electric field intensity due to a charged conducting cylinder. That electric intensity is lambda upon 2 pi epsilon 0 R. Once again you can rearrange the terms and get that E is equal to sigma upon epsilon 0 into capital R upon small r, or for the just outside point it is sigma upon epsilon 0. So these two are the first two applications. We